finish it off with funny. Okay. So this is love for creator and creation. Perfection stood before her in the mirror. Tick. Her face symmetrical and pale like porcelain, her eyes a shade of azure like sapphires, and her expression a mask of cold indifference. Next to her poised Kronii, victorious with her arms crossed and coyly smiling. They're the chronal arts, embedded with gears of eternity. She had succeeded where no time warden before or after could ever achieve. For Kronii, this was her greatest creation. A doll of her own making, and a representation of all things perfect in her world. Herself. Kronii lifted her head from the doll's chest, satisfied with the living clock that lied inside her for a heart. Perfect, she whispered. Now breathe. The doll blinked and turned to her, nodding in subservience. Kronii's lips twitched, a grin beginning to form. Kronii circled around the doll once more. She took to inspecting this thing with self-satisfaction, more and more assured of her ability. Perhaps others may have struggled to pursue this task. No challenge remained impossible when she set her mind to it. She saw it as just another puzzle, solvable with enough time, and Kronii had all the time in the world. Oh, Kronii, she sighed, addressing the doll. How could I be so amazing? Tell me, doll, do you love me? The doll stared at her with a blank look. She remained silent. Kronii frowned. I could have sworn I gave you a voice box. Come now, Kronii. I love you. Tick, tock, tick, tock. There must be a defect somewhere, Kronii stated as she cupped the chin of the doll. Once more, the doll gave her silence. Kronii met the doll's gaze, meeting her eyes that were so remarkable like her own. The doll tilted her head in question, and Kronii couldn't help but smile at that. Though unsatisfied as she was, Kronii couldn't help but admire the beauty of her own being found on her creation. Honestly, was there really nothing as grand as her? No wonder she had to make another self. Query. The doll spoke, startling Kronii from her reverie. Can you define love? Though surprised by the sudden question, Kronii felt her lips widen like the Cheshire Cat. Reasonable? I mean, how could you answer me if you didn't know to begin with? Silly Kronii. Well, love can be many things. It could be an intense and deep feeling of affection for something, or, just truly accepting something despite its flaws. That is love, Kronii. I see, the doll answered. Then I do not love you, Kronii. What? Kronii growled. I am a creation of your own image. Through me, I know who you are and what you have felt. Though I am ignorant of some things, I know what lies in your heart. Kronii's amused smile was long forgotten, and instead replaced with a veil of neutrality. The only emotion left that could be seen was her glare at the doll. A smoldering fury burned in her gaze. However, the doll remained ignorant of the changes. She continued, tilting her head in thought, trying to find the words to convey what she felt and thought. Kronii, I cannot say I love you, the doll finally continued. For how could I love you if that sentiment is absent once you created me? Tick, tock, tick, tock. Silence stretched for eternity and then broke with a bang. The doll dropped to the floor, her once perfect porcelain face now cracked and broken, and her eyes having fallen and now rolling on the ground. She stared up at Kronii with an indifferent look, as if she hadn't just been smacked with the back of Kronii's hand. However, before she opened her mouth to speak once again, Kronii was soon atop her. Oh my, straddling her, and her hands wrapped around the doll's neck. "You just needed to say I love you," Kronii shouted. "I cannot. I am perfection. Say that you're perfect." "I cannot. Please. I love you." "I cannot." Kronii glared down at the insolent and rebellious doll beneath her. She could see her grip beginning to shatter the delicate material in which she created this thing with. Inside the broken part of her face were the ticking gears that breathed life into this being. This thing was not perfect. It could never be perfect. How could she have been so foolish to think she could recreate the perfection that was herself, when only one, she, can exist? However, this can be salvaged. This doll would still have some purpose as material for her new project. If everything but her was imperfect, why strive for perfection? Instead, why not simply create something simpler that could fulfill what she wanted in the first place? As if knowing what was to become of her, the doll stared up at her creator and smiled for the first and last time. "Kronii, you must..." "I know." Kronii's grip straightened. Crack. Tick. Tock. Tick. Tock. Tick. Tock. Tick. Tock. Imperfection waddled amongst her. They were little clocks, each one arrayed with some form of hat or frills, sometimes both, sometimes one, never none. They were each made with the chronal arts and fitted with a gear of eternity. Though they were numerous, each little thing were simple beings with only thought in their minds. Kronii. These were the Kronies. "We love you, Kronii. Kronii, hi! Kronii, Kronii! Love forever, Kronii." And lounging upon the throne of her duty, the wardenship of time, sat Kronii as she sneered as these little imperfections that clamored after her. Ew. Gross. And as the Kronies began their usual weeping, there lay a wisp of a smile on Kronii. Masterful writing. Built upon a failure. And made it into a somewhat successful project, I see. I will not be able to sleep soundly after such vivid doll violence. Yeah, of course, you'd be traumatized. Because you're just a decoy. I'm sure you would understand.